Yeah, lovely to see you all. And I'm particularly pleased that those of you on the introductory course have joined us. And I can't see you at home, but I know you're there. At least I hope you're there. Yeah, very good to be at this class. I used to come to this class, I used to be part of the team here for many years. So it's very nice to come back and see some familiar faces as well as new ones. So yes, Surya Naga was saying that I'm going to talk about confession. The reason I'm going to talk about confession, which some of you will know, is that at this class we have a series. We have sort of series of talks, and this particular series is exploring particular ancient Buddhist text, an Indian Mahayana Buddhist text, Mahayana being a later form of Buddhism, called the Sutra of Golden Light. The Sutra of Golden Light. And the Sutra of Golden Light is a very, very well-known sutra in Buddhism. It's a sort of vast sutra, not just in size, but in terms of it incorporates everything that Buddhism has to say. It's sort of, Bhante, my teacher, Bhante Sangharakshita, talks about it not just being a text, but being a world. And often these Mahayana sutras are like that. They're a world. You know how when you read a great novel, you step into a world? Often you step in, or you go to see a great film and you step into a world. Well, the Sutra of Golden Light is like that. It's a magical world. It's a world that's full of strange and wonderful things that happen. And at its heart, there's a chapter, chapter 3 of the sutra, which is all about confession. I say it's about confession. It's not really about confession. It is a great confession. What happens up to this point, this is quite early on in the sutra, you've got, the Buddha's teaching. Now, in the Mahayana Sutra, the Buddha is not just the historical Buddha, who was a man who, would have wandered the villages and plains of northern India 2,500 years ago, but he's not just that historical figure. He's this golden figure. He's the mythical Buddha. He's the Buddha who's a symbol for. He's the personification of enlightenment in mythical terms, not just in human terms. Anyway, he's teaching. But then you sort of switch over to another figure called Ruchiraketu. And Ruchiraketu is a disciple of the Buddha. He's a disciple of the Buddha, like an ideal disciple. He is, as it were, a bodhisattva. A bodhisattva is a being who is striving to attain enlightenment, striving to become a Buddha, and not just for his own sake, not just because he wants to be free from suffering for his own sake, but because he wants to gain enlightenment so that he can lead everybody, all beings, to enlightenment. He recognizes that enlightenment is what the world needs. What we all need, all of us unenlightened ones, need enlightenment. But the best way he can do that is by gaining enlightenment himself and then helping others to do so himself. Anyway, Ruchiraketu has this dilemma. He has this dilemma because the historical Buddha, not maybe the mythical one, but the historical Buddha lived until he was 80 years old and then he died. At least his physical body died, and he's said to have, his consciousness is said to have been liberated from all the constraints of his physical form. And we don't know what that means. We might find out one day. Well, we will find out one day. But the Buddha is said to, in a way, not just die, he's said to attain final enlightenment, final nibbana, parinibbana. Anyway, he died at 80, the physical body died, and Ruchiraketu is wondering, why did the Buddha die? I mean, why was his life so short? If he was enlightened and was an embodiment of compassion, why did he not stick around? And it's a sort of, it's not just a literal question, it's a sort of existential question. If enlightenment is the highest good, then is it the highest good if it disappears when you die? Does it disappear when you die? Who is the Buddha? Was he to be identified with his physical form alone or not? They're the sorts of questions that Uttrakeku's pondering. And in the sutra, he's pondering this, and suddenly the house that he's in, his house, expands. It becomes boundless. The house is a symbol for his mind. It's an obvious symbol for his mind. And 4 Buddhas suddenly appear in his house. It's a symbol for him touching the enlightened mind. He's contemplating the Buddha, and something happens. He enters into a new dimension of consciousness, a new consciousness itself, where the question, the problem of death and the death of the Buddha disappears. It's not relevant in this new dimension, in this new consciousness. He's transcended his ordinary way of conceiving, his ordinary consciousness, which framed the problem in the first place. Anyway, he enters into this new dimension, but then falls asleep. So that's a bit unusual anyway. I fall asleep, but you just don't expect somebody who's just entered into this new dimension of consciousness with 4 Buddhas who've visited to fall asleep. But he falls asleep and he has a dream, and in the dream he sees another figure, a man, who's beating a drum, a golden drum. And out of this drum beat, out of the drum, pours forth light, golden light. But it's not just light in the ordinary sense of the word, it's the light of enlightenment, pours forth from this drum. And then it's not just even the light of enlightenment. What starts to happen is that the drum speaks. So this is the sort of thing you get in a Mahayana Sutra. It's not that unusual for things to happen like this. The drum starts to speak forth verses of confession. So very, very sort of interesting. I don't know quite how to. It's not something that you can just have dot to dot symbolism explained. But anyway, that you have to sort of imagine that something of another dimension is happening. Out of this drum there is light and verses of confession. And it's those verses of confession that form the heart of this sutra, the Sutra of Golden Light. There's a lot more that happens in subsequent chapters, including other stories and lots of beings, deities, gods and goddesses who appear, and they all, and kings, and they all of them make a vow to protect the Sutra of Golden Light. So you get this whole meta kind of thing going on, where all these characters in the Sutra of Golden Light talk about the Sutra of Golden Light and how precious that sutra is, and how they will protect it with their all the powers at their disposal. So the sutra is somehow, you start thinking, well, what is the sutra? Where is the Sutra of Golden Light that they're protecting? The heart of it is these verses of confession. So I'm going to talk a little bit about confession sort of more broadly, generally, from a Dharmic Buddhist point of view. But then I'm going to read you some of these verses, maybe if we've got time, all of these verses. And I'll pause at, suitable junctures and see if you have a question or a response. And I'm going to include you at home, so your questions you'll have to type in on chat, and Alexei, who's here managing our tech, will read out questions. So it's going to be an interactive evening, this. Yeah? So first of all, confession in Buddhism. What is confession in Buddhism? Why are we confessing at all in Buddhism? Now you have to remember, Buddhism doesn't have, it's not theistic religion, it doesn't have a creator God. It certainly doesn't have it doesn't have a creator God. It doesn't have a judgmental being, including the Buddha. The Buddha is not a judgmental being who will hand out reward or punishment, depending on whether we've been good or not. There is no external judge or arbiter in Buddhism. So it's quite unlike a theistic religion where you might confess because, well, why might you confess in a theistic religion? Any thoughts in the room? Somebody was going to say something? Absolution. And what would absolution look like? What would absolution mean?
It wipes the slate clean.
It wipes the slate clean, that's right. So you're free from the consequences of your acts. Yeah, you're unskillful. In Buddhism, we talk about unskillful and skillful rather than good and bad and good. And yeah, absolution wipes the slate clean. Well, in Buddhism, there isn't an absolution. The law of karma operates whether you confess or not. So there will be consequences to our actions, whether we kind of confess or not. There isn't a wiping of the slate clean. There isn't anybody who can wipe the slate clean, including the Buddha. Yeah, we are responsible for our own actions, and we will experience the consequences of our actions through the law of karma. And the law of karma in Buddhism is seen like a natural law, like the law of gravity. It's not just that somebody's sitting up there saying, you've been good and therefore you deserve, I don't know, health and happiness or something, or the converse. It's not that. It's a natural law that seems to imply that at least one of the laws of the universe is ethically sensitive. Not everything in the universe is ethically sensitive, but the law of karma is somehow. So, it's not like absolution. Why else would you confess in a theistic tradition? What's happening at a psychological level when you confess in a theistic tradition?
Guilt.
Yeah, guilt. So can you say more about that?
If you do something bad, you feel guilty, and when you tell someone, you feel better.
Okay, good. So when you feel, when you do something bad, you feel guilty, and when you tell someone about it, you feel better, particularly if they grant you absolution. Yeah. So then you feel better. And I was brought up in a Hindu tradition, and there isn't. I don't know. There's not. I was going to say there isn't much confession in Hinduism. I don't think there's much ethics in Hinduism, actually. I mean, don't quote me on that. Well, I'm on record now. But friends of mine who've been brought up in a Catholic tradition, Subhadra Mati, who many of you know, says that sometimes you get into, and I'm sure not every Catholic is like this, but she talks of getting into a cycle of sort of sinning in the Catholic terms, doing something that she's not meant to do, feeling guilty, confessing, getting absolution, and doing it again, because she's free to do it again. And then you don't actually, you can get into this cycle of sin and absolution, confession in the middle, to the point where you don't actually know whether you're feeling better because you can confess and then feel absolved, or what comes first, the sin or the absolution. It just gets into a vicious cycle. You're free to sin because you've been absolved and can be absolved again. Anyway, Buddhism doesn't have this same concept of sin or absolution. Buddhism tends to see actually all of us as being, hopefully this is encouraging. I'm trying to encourage, but this might not sound very encouraging. Rather than seeing that we're intrinsically bad, this notion of original sin, Buddhism sees us as intrinsically stupid, intrinsically deluded, spiritually deluded. Like we are deluded, stupid children who have been given a mind but don't know how to use it. And we've got this world very, very wrong. In essence, we've got it wrong. Completely upside down wrong. What at the heart of our stupidity, what we've got wrong, stupidity is maybe too flippant a term. Buddhism talks about a delusion, which is a bit more polite. What we've got wrong, can anybody say what we've got wrong? What have we got wrong? Yeah, go on.
The idea of a fixed self.
Yes, well done. And so did you hear that? I'll repeat it just in case the microphone might not pick it up. The idea that you, are a fixed and separate entity in the universe. Yeah? Fixed in the sense that there's something essentially unchanging about us. And separate in the sense that there's an absolute boundary between me and world. Yeah? And actually, what Buddhism says is there's nothing fixed about us. The body's definitely not fixed, and the mind isn't fixed. I can't. You try following the breath, and you see that the mind isn't very good at being fixed. Yeah, it's not fixed. Nothing's static, because nothing is static in this universe, and actually nothing has hard boundaries. The very fact that we're breathing, the pandemic, the war, there's nothing, we're not just sealed. Does that make sense? We're not boundaried. We're more like a configuration of, this isn't a Buddhist way of talking, it's like a configuration or constellation of energy, temporarily in a particular form. But even in that temporary form, it's always flowing. A bit like a river, it has boundaries, but really there's nothing fixed. There's water just flowing. Or Bernardo Kastrup, who was interviewed recently, talked about whirlpools. It's like in the ocean, you have these, imagine you've got all these whirlpools in an ocean. A whirlpool is not like separate from the ocean. You can't just take the whirlpool out of the ocean. It's not a thing that's separate, but it is a configuration of a pattern of energy. Do you see what I mean? It's not that it doesn't have any existence. You can have a whirlpool and point to it and even get swallowed up in it. But it's not really boundaried in the way that we think we are. So we think we live in a fixed and boundaried self that I call me. And what's more, we think that the world out there is full of fixed and separate objects, some of which I want, some of which I definitely don't want. The attractive ones, the ones that make me feel like I'll be better, bigger, richer, happier, I want, and the ones that I don't want. That is all part of this basic delusion, this stupidity. And that is the essence of suffering. That lies at the heart of our suffering, our mind-made suffering. It lies at the heart of all of our greed and our hatred. All the wars in this world, which have been going on, you have to remember, since human civilization, or lack of civilization, began. All the hatred in this world, all the competitiveness, all the greed, all the blame, the offence-taking, I didn't watch the operas, but the Oscars. But I mean, how stupid. Anyway, you'll have to sort of work that one out. But all of that reactivity, you know how we can just fly off the handle like Will Smith. That is based on this root delusion, yeah? And then we cause pain to ourselves and other people. Okay, so why confess in Buddhism? Why confess? Because Buddhism sees our true potential as enlightenment. It says, yes, we've got this stupidity, this delusion that goes very, very, very deep, but we've also got the potential to be enlightened. And in a way, that potential goes even deeper, you could say. You could say that enlightenment is what we really are. And Buddhism does say this in places, that actually what we really are, if we could only realize we're Buddhas. But what happens is this delusion prevents us from seeing that. It's like we put, we obscure our own light. We hide our own light, the light of enlightenment, the golden light, and then we look around us for happiness and solutions to our life's problems, when actually it's within. We have it all within. In human consciousness, there is the potential for complete freedom, complete contentment, complete peace, complete bliss, complete love that cannot be shaken by anything that happens in this temporal world, this world of time and space and matter and form. There's something beyond that, and that is within the human mind. So Buddhism's saying, look, you've got it all, you don't know you've got it all, and what's more, you've covered it over with delusion, and then out of that delusion you behave stupidly, cause yourself and other people more pain, and every time I do that, every time I behave stupidly out of greed and hatred, every time I do that, I tighten this whirlpool, I tighten the delusion, I make it spin faster. Yeah. Now, confession is a way of loosening the grip of that tightening. It's by saying, look, oh yeah, I was stupid. In acknowledging that, I start to slightly loosen the sense that I'm completely boundaried and separate from you. So if I act hurtfully to you, and I'm able to acknowledge it and apologize, well, one of the effects, I hope you'll be familiar with this, is that you feel a bit more connected again. Does that make sense? When you're feeling like you've lashed out at somebody in anger, or you've been selfish in some way, one of the effects is that we feel more separated from each other. Yeah? And that is its own pain. Buddhism says that's the punishment. I mean, not that it has a notion of punishment, but you see what I mean? That's the karmic consequence. We've tightened the grip of our delusion. So confession is a way of loosening that, and then we're more in touch with the ideal of the golden light, which is also our potential. So basically we're more in touch with our potential for enlightenment. As soon as we acknowledge our stupidity and our stupid behaviour, and feel the shame of that, feel the, not guilt in the nasty irrational sense that I'm going to be punished or I'm going to lose the approval of my people that I want approval from. Not that, but just look, I've acted in a way that's not worthy of me. It's not really worthy of somebody who's a self-conscious human being. I've acted in that way. I want to acknowledge it. In acknowledging it, I can let it go. And in letting it go, I can reconnect with my potential and re-experience a connection with the human race, with nature, with the world. Yeah. So that's why we confess in Buddhism. It's not out of guilt, it's not out of fear. It's an intelligent response because we want to get back in touch with our potential. So it's an essential part of our practice. It's an essential part because until enlightenment, all of us are going to be unskillful at times. I mean, I am stupidly unskillful, even though I've been trying to practice sincerely for over 30 years. I still act from greed greed in my case more than hatred, but I still get angry and feel separate from people very much. Okay, the drum. So the drum in Ruchiraketu's dream is speaking these verses. And let me just read you a few. First of all, there's praising the Buddhas, the mythical beings, the mythical Buddhas, who are personifications of the enlightened mind. They're mythical in the sense that they're not literally golden and sitting on lotuses, but they are personifications of a truth, of a reality that's also in the universe, as well as evil in the universe and hatred and greed and so forth. There is enlightenment in the universe. There's forces of enlightenment. We can call on them. Not that they'll save us, but they'll inspire us and guide us. Yeah? Confession. May the Buddhas watch over me with minds attentive. May they forgive my faults with minds given over to compassion. On account of the evil done by me previously, even in hundreds of aeons, I have a troubled mind. Oppressed with wretchedness, trouble and fear, with an unhappy mind, I continually fear evil acts. Wherever I go, there is no enjoyment for me anywhere. All the Buddhas are compassionate. They remove the fears of all beings. May they forgive my faults, and may they deliver me from fear. May the Tathagatas take away for me the defilement of impurities and acts, and may the Buddhas bathe me in the surging waters of compassion. Isn't that beautiful? Well, maybe you don't think it is, but I think it's very beautiful. You're appealing to the Buddhas, but the Buddhas are not necessarily somebody outside of you. You're appealing to your true nature. You're saying, may the compassion that is the truth bathe me, forgive me. Not that in a sense anybody actually will forgive or bathe you. Does that make sense? So any points just arising from those opening verses? I'll take maybe, if there are points, or questions, I'll take one from the floor, and then Alexi will, if you're at home, type away if you have a point, otherwise don't bother. And Alexi will read something out. So anybody in the room, just from those couple of verses, in a way they're very introductory verses. Anything strike you about them? Yeah, sure. I keep forgetting your name. I know
Peter.
you. Peter.
Hello.
Hi, Peter.
Yeah, the plural of Buddhas I find confusing.
So, particularly in Mahayana Buddhism, Peter's saying the plural of Buddhas, rather than the Buddha, is confusing. So, historically, we've got a Buddha that lived 2,500 years ago. In the Mahayana, this later form of Buddhism, well, actually even in early Buddhism, the Buddha is said to have rediscovered enlightenment, but not been the first to become enlightened. There's a sort of mythological lineage of past Buddhas who apparently, according to the mythology, lived aeons and aeons and aeons ago. In the Mahayana, later Buddhism, that's expanded. So you've just got a universe or universes of Buddhas. And it's as if in the Mahayana, each Buddha is made of light and particularly is symbolic of particular qualities of the enlightened mind. So, for example, mythically, the next Buddha will be called Maitreya, and he will particularly be an embodiment of compassion and kindness, whereas our Buddha was particularly an embodiment of wisdom. And then there are Buddhas, they don't all have to appear in male form, by the way. There are Buddhas that appear in female form. Anyway, they embody different qualities. Sometimes it's fearlessness, sometimes it's compassion, sometimes it's energy, sometimes it's wisdom, sometimes it's serenity and peace, etc., etc. So Buddhism's in a way rich in, later Buddhism particularly, rich in imagery. It personifies these qualities, partly so that you can feel for them. When we talk about qualities like wisdom and compassion, it's so abstract, it's hard to get a feeling for them. But actually, if you personify them as beautiful figures made of light, and worship those figures, and chant their mantras, and call on them, pray to them even, you start to get a heart connection with their qualities. Their qualities start to be diffused into us. We start to transform our minds if we dwell. I mean, one of the things Buddhism swears is what we dwell upon, we become. So if we dwell, well, think about it. What do you dwell upon? When I was a younger man, we didn't have YouTube or the internet, and it was sort of easier not to get distracted. I'm ashamed to say, this is a confession, that I've got rather addicted to the internet, to scrolling, to surfing, to watching YouTube videos. I don't really do social media, thankfully, but these days on YouTube you can even get TikTok videos, and I find myself sometimes watching them. That's awful, on my little phone. It's not. I mean, there are worse things that one can do in the world. I know. It's not tragic, but one of the consequences that I've noticed is that my attention span has shortened. Yeah, have you noticed that? You too? Yeah. Now, Buddhism is about developing the mind. One of the things Buddhism says is you can learn mindfulness, where you can have an attention span that's unlimited, where you can really focus on whatever it is that you want to focus on and do it fully and wholeheartedly. So shortened attention span is really anti-dharmic. It's really not what I'm trying to do. I meditate every day and then I watch YouTube. What is that? Yeah. All right. Anybody want to comment online? No, not. Okay. Let me read. Oh, hello. Who's that? Hello. Hi.
Sorry, I just have a question.
Yes.
How do you know who come next?
How do they know? It's mythology. It's mythology. It's not fact. It's not historical fact.
Oh, so it's not fact.
The thing is that Buddhism, having said that it's not fact, when you said, oh, it's not fact, I want to say, yes, it is. Buddhism as a tradition in the Eastern countries that it developed in over the 2.5 millennia, certainly in India, they didn't really distinguish between history and myth. Myth and history were not really separate in the way that in our post-enlightenment, by that I mean our sort of age of reason, post-enlightenment Western scientific kind of trained mind does separate fact from myth. And what we say is, look, fact is real. You might not be saying this, so I'm putting words in your mouth. But myth is fiction. That's what we kind of say, don't we? Whereas actually a more sophisticated way of saying it is that myth is a poetic way of talking about deeper truths that can't be just pinned down to reason. Yeah? So in that sense, it's when I talk about a Buddha Maitreya, I don't actually believe in that as a historical fact that will come true in some, but I do believe that mythically it says something very important. Poetically it says something important.
Is that means that enlightenment can foresee the future, or they are in different timelines?
Well, I don't know. I'm not enlightened myself.
Same.
But it's said that the enlightened mind isn't limited to this linear time that we inhabit. We think of time as a linear thing from past through present to future. Buddhism has a critique of that and says that actually time itself, as we conceive it, is in consciousness, not consciousness in time. Isn't that interesting? I haven't got time to talk about time too much, but excuse the pun. But I'll just touch on it. Buddhism would say, or at least one form of Buddhism would say, because Buddhism is actually vast, but one form of Buddhism would say, look, the past no longer exists. It's not in your experience apart from as a memory, and the memory is after all happening in the present. So the past doesn't exist anymore. It's actually to talk about the past as if it was a thing that is existing now is a fiction. Yeah, the past has gone. It's a memory now. Yes, it's had consequences that is still in the present, but the past doesn't exist as a thing now. The future, Buddhism would say, doesn't exist yet as a thing. Yeah, so it can be imagined, it can be planned for, hoped for, but it doesn't exist. So the past doesn't exist, the future doesn't exist, and then it says, well, the present, when you try and grasp the present moment, it's ungraspable, it doesn't exist. As soon as you think, now, it's gone. Now, it's gone. It doesn't exist. The present is a construct. Do you see what I mean? We've constructed this thing in our heads called the present. And we've constructed this thing called the past. And we've constructed this thing called the future. So in that sense, past, present, and future, according to Buddhism, are constructs in our consciousness. Yeah? It has quite a sophisticated notion of time itself. And myth is, in Buddhism, it's very important. I think our culture can be rather literal and therefore a bit stupid. Deeper truths are always pointing beyond the rational. Yeah? And we know that through art and song and music and literature and films and poetry and love. Deeper truths take us beyond the rational. And myth is trying to speak to us of stories that are timeless, images that are timeless, that tell us what it is to be human and alive and mortal. What is it to be alive? We don't often question that enough. I mean, who am I? What is it to be alive? When we know, the only real thing that we know is that one day this life will end. We don't know when. But in the meantime, we seem to be conscious and have all these experiences. What's going on? Myth can start to, and images can start to talk to us of deeper truths like that. And these Buddhas are in that mythical world. This whole sutra is a myth. in that it's a poem from thousands of years ago that's come down to us and still has relevance. Okay, I'm going to read a bit more confession from the drum, this golden drum in a dream that is emitting golden light. This light is the light of enlightenment, remember. So it's filling the world full of love and wisdom and freedom and peace. And yet there are these verses of confession coming out. I confess all the evil previously done by me, and I confess all my present evil. For the future, so we've got past, present, and future here. For the future, I undertake to refrain from all acts evilly done. I do not conceal whatever evil I may have done, the threefold bodily act, and the fourfold with the voice, as well as the act in the three ways with the mind. All this I confess. What I have done with my body, what I have said with my voice, and what I have thought with my mind, the tenfold act I have done, I confess it all. May I avoid the 10 evil acts. May I practice the 10 good acts. I will remain in the 10th stage. I will become an excellent Buddha. Whatever evil act I have done, bringing an undesired fruit, I will confess it all in the presence of the Buddhas. So that's the first set of verses. And it talks about evil. What do you think about evil? Bad, yes. But as a word, what's your response?
It's quite strong, it strikes me as.
Yes, quite strong.
It's very
Too,
loaded.
too strong?
Judgmental.
Judgmental, loaded. Loaded with what?
Judgment.
Judgment, yes. Go on.
And it
Tom.
feels different, I guess, to the stupid versus unstupid.
It is, isn't it? Suddenly.
It feels, yeah.
Suddenly it feels heavy, doesn't it?
It's very binary.
Binary, yeah. Evil, good, da-da-da. Yeah, there you go. So, whose hand's up? Oh, hello.
I was going to say, evil is something that, certainly from my point of view, on a day-to-day basis, you don't really see it. You hear about it, but
Yes.
it's hard to see evil when you're relating to people.
Yes.
Evil for me almost seems a bit fictional.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the first thing to say is I don't want to defend that word evil. If you don't like it, don't worry about it. This is a translation from an ancient Indian text. We've got to try and find equivalent words. The word in Sanskrit is papa. Papa. And papa is... it really does have some weight to it. Now sin also has lots of connotations, particularly for ex-Christians. It's going to have lots of connotations of original sin and so forth. Unskillfulness, which is technically correct, doesn't often carry the emotional weight that this confession is trying to get to. Maybe there isn't a great word. Anyway, the word that is in the text that I've got a translation of is evil. But if you don't like it, don't worry about it. But what I would say is that in the act of confessing, there's a real sense of remorse, a real sense of powerful remorse and regret that feels painful. Yeah. And what you're trying to do in confessing it is acknowledge that unskillfulness, but also feel the pain and the remorse, and use that remorse, which is a painful feeling, to strengthen the resolve to change, so that you don't act in that way again. Does that make sense? If we didn't feel remorse, we might not be compelled to want to change. And Buddhism's all about change. It's all about you're a potential Buddha, and this is getting in the way of your enlightenment. You should feel regret for something that gets in the way, and you want to clear the way. So it's a painful thing, but you want to get it off your chest. So there is emotion there. And maybe evil's not the best word, but evil's used. Anything else that strikes you? There's lots of 10 good acts, 10. I'm not going to go into all the technicalities of it. You need to do a course in Buddhism. There are 10 precepts in Buddhism, 3 talking about the body, non-violence, theft, as it were, not stealing things, and not committing sexual misconduct, which would involve violence in sex or acting against somebody's will or using deceit. In sex. It's not that sex itself is seen as sinful or evil, but using sex as in a manipulative or violent way is. So they're the bodily acts. Then there's speech, 4 about speech, unkindly speech, harsh speech, frivolous speech, slanderous speech, are all seen as unskillful. And then the mind, covetousness, that greedy mind that wants the last of everything. Well, cake is what I think of. But also covets people, covets possessions, covets experience. That unsatisfied, grasping mind. Then there's hatred. Don't need to elaborate on that. And then finally there's delusion. So you've got these 10 unskillful ways of being, and there's the opposites, acting from kindness, generosity, contentment, etc. Love. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, do.
Yeah. So it also talks about thoughts, right?
Yes.
You said thoughts. So
Thoughts
what
are
does
actions.
That mean? Yeah.
Thoughts are actions. So Talib is asking about thoughts. We're confessing thoughts here. In Buddhism, thoughts are actions too. According to the law of karma, what we dwell upon has consequences out there in the world. So when you do more positively, when you do the metta bhavana, have you all done the metta bhavana on the course? Yeah, when you do the metta bhavana and you're wishing somebody well, according to Buddhism, that has a real effect. Maybe it's a very subtle real effect, but metta is a volition, it's a thought, and a will, a sort of act of will, but it's not just in the privacy of your own mind. You have a real effect in the world, but it's very subtle. It's like we don't often pick up that effect, but it's there. I've been watching YouTube videos on near-death experiences, and I don't know whether these people who have near-death experiences, I don't know completely whether everything they say is how things really are, but it is their experience. And so many of them say that when they die, they meet some sort of loving light, that they're drawn towards this light, often white, often golden, that is full of love, is completely non-judgmental, is completely embracing in its love, and that they are shown the consequences of their life, their actions. They have a life review, and they are shown the consequences of their actions from the other side, as it were, from the side of how people experience them. And thoughts are actions too.
So if you have evil thoughts and you don't really control them, let's say, or you go into fantasy, whatever, you have to confess it to someone.
Yeah, when you say do you have to confess, so Talib's just asking about fantasy or evil thoughts and should we confess them. If you're practicing Buddhist, there's no have to, but it's a good practice to confess them. Yeah, it's good practice. If you can when you confess them, you have to pick somebody to confess to. Well, you can either just confess them to the Buddhas in the privacy of your own mind, or if you actually want to confess to a person, you have to probably pick somebody that can understand the context, so that they're not just going to say, "Oh my God, you horrible man." How can you have that thought? They're going to understand you. They're going to also see your potential, and they're going to say, "Okay, that way of thinking isn't very good," and they're going to say, well, what are you going to do about it? But then, I mean, it's not like they'll completely let you off the hook, but they're not going to judge you by it. Yeah. So you have to sort of, you don't want to get into guilt, in that irrational guilt of I'm a horrible person. You are a potential Buddha. I am a potential Buddha. That has to be the context. That's why these confessions start with worshipping the Buddhas, because you're worshipping your own potential in mythical personified terms. You're worshipping that potential because you want to connect with it, realize it, and then you see that, oh, look, I act in a way that gets in the way of that realization. Yeah. Whereas if you start getting into I'm a miserable worm that just doesn't deserve to live, and go into horrible kind of low self-esteem and depressed states, then that's not a real confession. I mean, that then is to be confessed. Guilt, apparently, in Buddhism, is unskillful, and you need to confess it. So that's, yeah. But, so don't worry about your thoughts. I mean, what I mean is, all of us have thoughts that are unskillful. That's why we learn to meditate, so that we can transform our minds. Yeah. So don't think that you're just some awful person. You're not. But what we are is unenlightened. Yeah. And with the potential to be enlightened. So that's pragmatic. Yeah. So we will have unskillful thoughts. We try not to act on them. But in a way, the thought is an action already. But then you at least try and not. Say I have say I'm Will Smith and I'm practicing Buddhism. So I get really, really angry at something that whoever it was, Chris Rock says. As a Buddhist, what I'd hope to do is acknowledge that I'm really angry at you, Chris. To myself, I'd acknowledge that and then work with my own anger rather than go and be violent. Yeah? Okay, I'm going to read a bit more of this confession. You ready? So this is confession part 2. There are three sets of confession verses in this chapter. We've had the first one. Now it gets a bit more specific. May the Buddhas, the best of all beings, who dwell in the 10 directions, whose minds are full of mercy and compassion, may they watch over me. Whatever cruel, evil act I have done previously, I will confess it before the Buddhas. Whatever evil I have done by not attending to my parents, by neglecting the Buddhas, by neglecting the good. Whatever evil I have done by being drunk with the intoxication of authority, or the intoxication of privilege, or the intoxication of youth. Whatever evil I have done by the application of foolish reasoning, by a mind dark with ignorance, under the influence of an evil friend, with a mind distracted by impurities, under the compulsion of pleasure, through the influence of anxiety or anger, or through unsatisfied avarice. Whatever evil I have done by my association with ignoble people, by reasons of envy and greed, or out of guile and wretchedness. Whatever evil I have done by failure to gain mastery of my desires, in a time of fear, or through passion and anger, when oppressed by hunger and thirst. Whatever evil I have done for the sake of food and drink, for the sake of clothing and shelter, or for the sake of sex. Whatever evil I have done of body, tongue, and mind, I confess it all. Whatever disrespect I have shown to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I confess it all. Whatever disrespect I may have shown towards bodhisattvas and those who preach the Dharma, or towards other meritorious beings, I confess it all. whatever evil I have done through stupidity, from folly or pride and arrogance, through greed, hatred and delusion, I confess it all in the presence of the Buddhas. So that's pretty specific, isn't it? I mean, it's not specific in the sense that they're actual instances, but what they are categories of unskillfulness. Yeah? And they're quite specific. I mean, every time I read this, I feel some regret that I wasn't kinder to my mother when she was alive. She died 11 years ago. I mean, there was a lot of love between us, and she knew I loved her, and she loved me, and we had a really good relationship. But goodness, I would get irritated. And I would let my irritation show. And I'd even sometimes just get harsh and angry and just voice my anger and irritation. And then sulk. That's all right when you're adolescent, but it's humiliating in your 20s and 30s. She's dead. And she loved me. And I wish I could have been kinder. There I am, a Buddhist. I'm a Buddhist who teaches Buddhism. And, to my own mother, I was just... I just behaved like a child. An idiot, an adolescent, impatient, reactive child. I mean, she did press all my buttons and she knew where they were. but
That sounds like half a confession.
Half a confession. You see, you must never justify a confession. I acted in a way that was unworthy of me as an aspiring Buddhist, aspiring bodhisattva, aspiring Buddha. Yeah. Then you get this lovely intoxications. Do you know what intoxication, drunk with privilege? Aren't we all drunk with privilege? I mean, maybe not all of us, but many of us, drunk with privilege compared to so many people in the world. We're so privileged. And do we not take it for granted a lot of the time and assume it as a right? Yeah? Assume that we should have clothing and shelter and food and pleasure and safety and etc., etc. Drunk with the intoxication of authority. Have you been in a position of authority? I've been, Surinaga called me the boss here. I was the boss of the London Buddhist. I don't know if I became too intoxicated by that. But there you go. You can be drunk with the intoxication of authority, can't you? Intoxication of youth. I mean, who here is under 30? Yeah. So the rest of us, it doesn't count, this one. But when you're young, you can sometimes feel invincible, as if you have the right to rule the world, to share your infinite wisdom with with others, etc., etc. Whatever evil I've done for the sake of food and drink, for the sake of clothing and shelter, or for the sake of sex. So it's quite hard-hitting, isn't it? This is an ancient Indian Buddhist text. It knows us. Do you see what I mean? The human mind, the unenlightened human mind, hasn't changed that much over 2.5 millennia. We do these things, the intoxication of privilege and intoxication of youth, and it knows us. Look, I'm running out of time. Let's just see if there's one more question. Oh, Alexi, yeah, let's take one from online.
So
He's asking, what about moral ambiguity, relativity? For example, if one feels their action is justified but is against the law, societal norms.
So what about moral ambiguity? If you feel that your action is justified,
but it goes against the law.
But it goes against the law. Well, in this country, I'd say be really careful about breaking the law, because we live in a democracy. And there are ways of, I know it's frustrating and slow and really, really inefficient, and yes, I'm sure there's corruption and it's not perfect as a democracy. But it's a pretty hard one and high achievement for a civilization to achieve this level of democracy. You know, a few hundred years ago we didn't have that in this country, and in many countries you don't have that. So in this country, I'd say this is my view, think very careful before undermining the law, even if you think that the law is unjust. Because there are other ways. You don't want to undermine the rule of law in this country. That's what I'm trying to say. Does that make sense? Now, if I grew up at a time when South Africa had apartheid, and if you're living in a country with very unjust laws, well, maybe do undermine them, and do undermine them, but try and do it without violence, without hurting people. Civil disobedience, maybe. So I don't know if that helps. Yeah. So in a democracy, in a liberal democracy, be careful about undermining the law. That's what I'd say. Not that the laws are perfect, but you can campaign in this country. Do you see what I mean? You can protest. You can campaign. You can ask for justice. And I know it's slow and it's tedious and so forth, but I think we have a fairly good deal in this country compared to many people in the world who don't. I'm going to finish just by reading the last set of verses. They're not very long. And I'll finish, and then let's just sit for a moment. These verses are normally recited in a puja, in a ritual. I've just read them in the middle of like I'm giving a talk. But actually, we're meant to connect, we're meant to hear these verses from the drum of our own hearts and minds. Sorry? Sorry? Oh yeah. So let's just sit. I'll read just this last verse. And then we'll sit, and then I'll hand over to confession. Whatever severe evil I have done, in the oppression of existence, or through foolish thought, in the presence of the Buddhas, I confess it all. And I confess that evil which has been heaped up by me, in the oppression of birth, by the various oppressions of bodily activity, in the oppression of the world, in the oppression of the fleeting mind, in the oppression of impurities caused by the foolish and stupid, in the oppression of the arrival of evil friends, in the oppression of fear, in the oppression of craving, in the oppression of hatred, and by the oppressions of folly and darkness, in the oppression of the moment, in the oppression of time, by the oppression of gaining merits, standing before the Buddhas and in their presence, I confess all this evil.